Lots of Apple news today, by the way, because Apple, they did their investors call. They field questions from analysts. They talk about how great they're doing, kind of the opposite of the interrogation that took place in Congress.
Yeah, Tim Cook had a busy day.
Holy moly. Week. Talk about a busy week.
Yeah.
Jeez.
A lot of pressure.
So you go into Congress and you say, look, there's many great companies. We just want to be the best. We're not really that powerful. We're not doing that well. And then they do the analyst investor call thing. And then they say, oh, yeah, we're doing real well. They're like, shh, don't tell Congress. We're doing real well. We keep changing the world. We got Apple Silicon coming up. We exceeded expectations, even in the face of a pandemic. We got cash reserves. All these things come out on that call. And then it's just the shh, get back to Congress. We got to compete with Samsung, famously, as Tim Cook said. And you suggested that it was on purpose.
Yeah.
He was taking a shot. But anyway, this is the top Apple story for me because this is a really interesting transition that's taking place. Facebook says Apple's iOS 14 changes could hurt its ad targeting. Now, I feel like the average person is well aware of the way that Facebook's ad targeting works in between and through different apps. iOS 14 is getting very privacy-centric to the extent that it is going to be alerting users on all these activities that have been going on, but that users may not be aware of, including apps' abilities to talk to one another and share information and whether or not you want to opt into that. And this is a key part of Facebook's business in order to hit people with the relevant ad targeting. And that's what ends up working. It's this data business that we're well aware of. Facebook Chief Financial Officer David Werner said on Thursday that upcoming changes to Apple's iOS 14 operating system could hurt the social network's ability to target ads to users. The change is expected to start impacting Facebook advertising in the third quarter, but it will have a more pronounced effect in the fourth quarter as more people obviously adopt the latest software from Apple. So until now, advertisers could use a device ID number called the IDFA to better target ads and estimate their effectiveness. In iOS 14, each app that wants to use these identifiers will ask users to opt in to tracking when the app is first launched. Who's going to opt in? Who's going to say, I mean, Twitter does something similar. Do you want us to target things based on your geography? So this is not, some percentage of people will opt in, but some percentage of people will opt out. And prior to that, they're getting 100%. So yeah, that advertising business is going to be affected. Now, I mean, I'm really curious about iOS users and how they feel about this. If they're willing to click a thing that lets somebody like Facebook track them, or if they would opt out. I'm asking right now, I'm asking the user base. And if any of them see the advantage of potentially getting better ads as a reasonable trade in exchange for this interactivity between apps. And Will's shaking his head no. He's out. He's opting out by default. And I think a number of users are going to be the same. And I actually think this is a major differentiating characteristic for iOS. It's something Apple can do that others cannot, because Google, Android, these Android being available on a wide variety of devices, and Google services, often free, if not always, having some sort of a free tier, and then supported through data collection and subsequently targeted advertising. Similar model over here to what Facebook is working with. If you're on iOS, you're going to feel kind of happy that you get this choice.
They have a one-up.
That 14 starts showing you these things. So you have to believe that it would be part of Apple's strategy to say, not just do we think our customers will like this, but our customers are going to notice that we grant them far more ability to control their experience and the flow of their data than other platforms are capable of doing. And so that's pretty interesting. Now, here's the quote from Facebook's financial officer. He says, "Our view is that Facebook and targeted ads are a lifeline for small businesses. especially in a time of COVID, and we are concerned that aggressive platform policies will cut at that lifeline at a time when it is so essential to small business growth and recovery. So of course he's going to say something like this. It's all so confusing right now. Facebook, enormous. Amazon, enormous. Google, enormous. And you know what they all did in the antitrust thing? They all said, we help small business.
Yeah.
They said, without us, small business is over. Because if we're Google, that's the only way you find a small business. If you're Facebook, it's the only way a small business can advertise. If you're Amazon, it's the only way a small business can list its product.
Yeah.
So they're all leaning on this small business thing in order, and I don't disagree with them. They do enable small business. They enable my small business, right? But it does sort of alleviate the pressure being pushed at them directly and puts it elsewhere and says, oh, this is who you're really hurting. Well, yeah, you're hurting those businesses that can't reach their customers, but you're sure hurting Facebook too, who is involved in a cut, in a piece, in a nice, healthy chunk of a lot of that. So it's there is no straight answer here. I have to say, and this is just again to to round out the thing. If I do have to have advertising, targeted advertising typically is going to be less offensive to me, only because it has a higher percentage chance of being relevant to me. Now, I'm not saying to you that that's a valid transaction. I'm not saying to you that you shouldn't be thinking about your privacy. I'm just saying that happens to be true in experience. I don't know if the transaction is equivalent in what you're giving up. I'm not going to tell you, but targeted advertising, for example, on Instagram, imagine they knew nothing about you. Imagine what kind of nastiness you'd be looking at. Generic stuff. So it's a tough one to navigate, but Apple is doing something big here and Facebook not too happy about it.